Alright, so we're cutting our transom. I've got 2 boards already cut. I got to cut 1 more. This is like...
Hello.
This is 1/2 inch plywood. I'm going to glue all these together with F26. Then I'll cut my angle after everything's dry. And once I'm done with that, then I'm going to paint this and put the transom back in. But this is 1/2 inch exterior grade plywood. And so 3 layers of it should be just what I need. I'm gonna go ahead and make this last cut, and then we'll get on to gluing it. This little deal here is a edge guide. You can get them at Harbor Freight for, I don't know, 20 bucks. For breaking down sheet goods, if you don't have a full-blown big table saw, well worth it. I'm gonna get this cut and then we'll get on with it. That's 3 pieces cut. We'll start gluing those together here in just a little bit. So the other night when I was working on this transom, it got dark on me, so I wasn't able to film. But I went ahead and got all my pieces cut, all my angles cut, and everything glued together. And we finally got a day where I don't have rain when I get off work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this power plane I've got here, I'm gonna go over my edges, level everything out. I'm gonna have to make a little bit of a relief on one edge so it'll slip up underneath the back of the transom. But I'm gonna go ahead and square everything up. That way it's all flush and looks good. And then we'll move on with with painting the transom and then getting the transom installed. It's our first coat. Got all the edges. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit. Then I'll come back over it with another coat, and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. And then we'll be ready to install it in the boat. Another thing I gotta do is I gotta get all this old registration off. So I'm gonna take a razor blade scraper. I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna scrape all these old letters off. That way, once I get the fresh coat of paint on, I'll be ready to go back on with new letters. So to do that, I'm just gonna take a razor blade scraper and try to get up underneath them best I can. Probably gonna scrape some paint off, that's okay, because like I said, we're repainting it. So here it is. Got it all prepped, cleaned off. Everything's ready to go. We're going to start painting it here in just a little bit. We pressure washed it, got all the loose paint off. And Cash and I are gonna start in on getting a fresh coat of paint on this thing. The transom's got its second coat. So as soon as we get some paint on this and get it dry, we will get on with it. 2 coats of paint later. Looks good. Now we're going to start working on getting the transom put in here. I have
got the transom.
You got the transom? Cool.
Show them how strong I am.
Yep. Cash is pretty strong.
That is a pretty heavy transom.
So we're going to work on getting it up in here.
Whoa.
And then getting holes drilled in it so we can get all our bracing and everything put back in it.
That's first.
So this board's a pretty tight fit. So what I'm going to do, I have this little deal here that's made for doing laminate flooring. I'll set it on here, and that way I can drive this transom up in here and fill this space. Now to start applying some silicone to all our holes in here so we can get these things bolted down. I'll put a little silicone around each hole to ensure these seal off. The same thing around my washers and the head of the bolts. Put a little silicone around the head of this bolt in the hole and around it, sliding it in. A washer and a nut. Now I've goofed up about the 3rd time on this thing and getting the wrong size bolts. So I've got enough that I can do both insides. So I'm hoping what I can do is I can get this secured. And once I have it secured, then I can go back later and get the right length bolts to go back in these other ones. Basically just get it up back on here enough that I can get the motor back on it. We got this all buttoned up here. We ended up having to trim some of our bolts off so that I could get the motor on. But the motor's back on the boat. And we're ready to start in on that project, getting it back up and going. This has got a 25 horse Johnson on it. As soon as we get this motor back up and going, then we can move on to wiring the lights and getting the front deck done. I know somebody's gonna ask me what we painted this with. And we painted this with exterior house paint, which sounds absolutely crazy, but I've painted several boats with it. Most exterior house paint is made for aluminum siding and the like, and so it holds up really well, and it's really cheap. I was able to buy a whole gallon for like $26 at Walmart, and it should hold up for quite a while. On top of that, I mean, I've got enough paint left over. I could paint another boat, maybe two. So plenty of paint for cheap, as opposed to getting rattle can paint that's gonna be super thin anyways, and it's gonna be more expensive. I mean, it's $6 a piece. You know, 5 cans, you've already spent more, and it's gonna take you more than 5 cans to paint a boat this size. So it's a whole lot cheaper to go with the exterior house paint. And like I said, it holds up really well. So a little hack there if you're looking for a cheap way to paint a boat. But hopefully soon we can get that motor up and going, and we can get this thing back out on the water.